Hello everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for October 1st, 2018. On today's episode, we're going to talk about what we've been up to at the water cooler. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta, and joining me on today's podcast is Slash Film Managing Editor Jacob Hall.
Hello, hello.
Weekend Editor Brad Oman.
Hey, that's me.
And writer Chris Evangelista.
Hello.
Guys, it's been a while since we've had Jacob on the podcast. Jacob, you've been deep in it at Fantastic Fest, and I guess that starts us off in the water cooler. What have you been doing?
For the past almost 2 weeks, I've been nothing but Fantastic Fest, which is the largest genre film festival in the United States, held in Austin, Texas every year, hosted by the Alamo Drafthouse. And I've been writing tons about it. I wrote about every single movie I saw. We'll talk about those at a later point, but you can find all those articles on slashfilm.com. But what makes Fantastic Fest an interesting place is that it's all held in one location. There are a few off-site events, but mostly it is all held at the Alamo Drafthouse South Lamar, right off downtown Austin. And that means that it can you stay in one place and you can participate in a lot of things between movies, and it's easy to have conversations and meet up with people and really relax and enjoy yourself. And I mentioned this in the podcast before, I believe, but there aren't even any lines at Fantastic Fest. You enter what you want to see on a digital lottery. It spits out what you're going to see that day, and you usually get what you want. It's very, very it's a system that works very well. So you just wait for your number to be called, more or less, and you go up and you go to theater when it's time. And this meant that I was able to...
And by the way, I've been to a ton of film festivals, and all of them are... The way they do it is pretty much horrible. And this sounds so much better than any of the film festivals I've ever been to.
Yeah, it's a great system. It's such a well-organized, well-run, friendly film festival in terms of volunteers, in terms of structure, in terms of how it's set up and run. I'm impressed every year, and every year they take feedback for what do you want to see improved in the system, and every year I see improvements. It is a genuinely good system, and it's something I hope that they really do. I hope it bleeds in other film festivals. Other film festivals are harder because they're usually scattered across the city or multiple theaters. It may be a bit trickier to make it work, but for me, this is the ideal system. And in addition to movies, which we will talk about, there's a lot of other fun things to do, like Tenacious D. Jack Black and Kyle Gass's band were here this year to premiere their new animated web series. So they performed on site. So a lot of people could see Tenacious D do a live concert. By
the way, I think animated is kind of stretching it. It looks like Jack Black drew a couple of scribbles, and they somehow connected the dots.
It is apparently fun. I skipped it because I had other things I needed to do, but the people I know who saw it, including Slash Film contributor Matt Donato, who reviewed it for the site, really enjoyed it. So even though it looks like garbage, apparently if you're a fan of Tenacious D, it's worth seeing. For me, the weird, bizarre highlight of the fest is that a friend of the site, Eric Snyder, the editor at Crooked Marquee, he's a freelance writer as well. He's been all over the place. He lost a bet. He had to participate in an annual event Fantastic Fest holds called Puke and Explode, where one of the Alamo Drafthouse's head chefs creates all manner of genuinely horrible things for people to eat, and there's a contest so you can stay in the longest. And we all gathered around between movies to see if Eric could last, to cheer for him, to root him on. And even though there were people up there who were bragging about how they can have iron stomachs, they could take anything, and Eric looked ready to pass out 2 rounds in, Eric won.
What kind of things were they eating?
An ice cream cone with chocolate syrup and sprinkles, but instead of ice cream, with scoops of bacon fat. That was one of them. Shots of whiskey full of ground up shrimp parts. Fried chicken's feet with no seasoning. Just all kinds of nightmares. This is also the same fest where its most famous event is probably the Fantastic Debates, where a group of people all gather at a local boxing gym, get in the ring, and debate various movie-centric arguments behind podiums, literally in a boxing ring behind podiums. They have an actual intellectual debate, and then they literally fight it out to see who actually wins the debate. And it's this fest in a nutshell. It is spirited and funny and very much about talking about movies and being there and being a movie fan, but also wild enough that people are punching each other in the face. And as someone who actually participated in this event, we guess about 5 years ago, it is by far one of the strangest things I've ever done. For the record, I lost the debate but won the fight, which means I won overall.
What was the debate?
The debate was whether or not 28 Days Later was a zombie movie or is a zombie movie. I argued that it was. Brad McCarg, a sometimes freelance writer and a friend of mine, argued it wasn't. And he won the debate. He's a better speaker than I am. He pulled my own words against me in ways that were horrible. But then I'm about 6 inches taller than him, so I had the reach in the fight and won it overall. But yeah, it's a really, really fun festival. Like, you come for the movies, but there's also concerts and special events and craziness and just stuff you can entirely avoid if you want to, but if you want a break from movies, it's all there.
Yeah. Brad, what have you been up to?
So I know that Halloween is not even here yet, and October just started today. However, it's that time when a lot of the retail outlets and stuff like that start getting their Christmas stuff together. And
if you don't have your limited edition Christmas ornaments from Hallmark right now, you're screwed at this point.
Well, that's not entirely true.
Yeah, I know. I'm joking.
But yes, when it comes to new ornaments, now is getting to the time when Hallmark releases their ornaments, and other retail outlets like the Disney Store and places like that start releasing their new Christmas ornaments before the season gets here, and actually puts Christmas decorations in full swing in all the storefronts. So the Hallmark ornaments actually are officially going on sale this Saturday, October 6th, because I actually stopped at a Hallmark store over the weekend, and I picked up actually an ornament that you bought recently, the Donkey Kong arcade game machine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I picked that up for my Christmas tree. But then I also stopped at the Disney Store at a mall, and they had an ornament of the Iron Spider version of Spider-Man. So I got that for my tree. And then I was checking out FYE because they always have random like pop culture things that I stumble upon. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I didn't even know this existed. And they had an ornament of Pickle Rick from Rick and Morty with a Santa Claus hat on. And they also had Reptar from Rugrats with a Reptar candy bar in his hands and also a Santa Claus hat on. So I picked up those as well. And I'll probably go to the Hallmark store to see if I can get my hands on some things. I don't know. I actually don't know if there's like a mad rush at the Hallmark store because I've never gone on the day that ornaments have come out, but I think I'm going to try if I can while I'm out and about. But I'm also supposed to be doing family stuff, so I might get screwed over and not get anything. But there's some cool ones coming out, like Hal from 2001: A Space Odyssey is getting his own ornament this year. There's a new Black Panther coming out. There's a bunch of really cool stuff. Hallmark always has incredible ornaments that are keepsakes for the given year that they come out, and so it's just time to start tracking them down.
Yeah, I pre-ordered a bunch of the ones that have already come out. Like there was a Big Hero 6 Baymax that I have. There's a Hansel and Carbonite, which is kind of cool. And are you collecting those that Star Wars series? I forget what it's called, but they like connect together.
I am. I don't know if I'll end up getting all of them, but last year I was fortunate enough where I usually try and wait and not buy them full price if I can avoid it, unless I know it's something that's going to be hard to get later on. And since those ornaments are a very salty $40 a piece because they light up and make sounds and they're very intricately detailed and pretty well sized, I waited until after Christmas to see if they would go on sale. And there's a local hardware store here, a Cablin's Ace Hardware.
Oh yeah, I think you told the story on this podcast.
Probably. They had the Death Star and the X-Wing on sale, and they were 50% off. So I got them for $20, which was much more reasonable to me for those ornaments, even though paying that much for an ornament is still kind of ridiculous.
It's totally ridiculous. I bought the Millennium Falcon. The weird thing is, usually with Hallmark ornaments, they make the ornament just for that year, and it kind of gets retired.
Right.
With these ornaments, because they all connect together, and they don't want people to have a bad experience where they can't have, the X-Wing or the TIE Fighter or the Death Star, they're, for however long that they're making the series, they're going to each year come back with all of them. So so I think they're going to be pretty easy to get. They're not like one of those ones you got to rush to the store. But you're reminding me now. I have to go Christmas ornament shopping. I have a small tree. It's called my droid tree, and I have a lot of droids on that. And I know there's a new Hallmark ornament coming out with R2-D2 with a porg on it, I think.
Yeah.
Is that what the new one?
I think he's got a couple porgs on him.
Yeah. So I got to get that for the porg tree. But okay, let's move on to what we've been reading, because I have not been doing much of anything this past week for whatever reason. But I have been reading this book. The book is called AbracaDAMMIT: Disaster Stories and Life Lessons from the World's Top Magicians. This is a book by Benjamin Zabin. I'm not sure if it's available in greater outlets. It's mostly available in Magic stores online. I'll link to it in the show notes. But I find it fascinating, and I don't think this will be something boring to people. But basically, this guy talked to dozens of famous and working magicians, and basically asked them what is the worst disaster that happened during a performance. And the stories are often hilarious. Sometimes they're just kind of informative and kind of a lesson to be learned in what you need as a magician, or even an entertainer of any kind, what you should be doing to prepare for a show. But oftentimes hilarious and just a lot of fun. So I've been reading that. Jacob, what have you been reading?
Well, I've been mostly reading myself as I attempt to proof my own articles. We're sending them off to Brad for film festival coverage. But I have been flipping through one book recently. Reading it cover to cover seems like a bad idea, but it's called Cryptozoology A to Z. And I bought this because I wanted to buy some beard cream on Amazon, and it wouldn't let me buy it by itself. So I went to my Amazon wish list and found the only book that fulfilled it to the perfect amount to buy it. And to be fair, I like cryptozoology, the study of unknown species, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, Abominable Snowman. And this book is awesome because it's not a joke book. It's not a book that's written for children. It's meant to be an actual guide for people who actually want to study cryptozoology and want to have a handy reference on hand. And I'm digging it because it puts right next to the Yeti and the Chupacabra, it'll have actual species that were thought to be long lost, recently discovered, as if trying to say, look how legitimate we are. So it is not I've seen so many books where it's here's 28 pages of lavishly illustrated looks at mythical monsters like unicorns and dragons, and hey kids, come look at these things that don't exist. Or this book is written in a very serious academic style. It is dry to the point where it should be boring, but because you're reading dry encyclopedia entries on the Chupacabra, it is suddenly so exciting. So it's just been my go-to. I have 5 minutes between screenings. I am dashing off for a second. I need to kill a few minutes, which I do. I'll open this book to a random page and read about a mythical monster that doesn't exist, but this book thinks does. It's kind of wonderful.
That is, so that's Cryptozoology A to Z. You can find that apparently on Amazon to fill your cart. So Jacob, you use beard cream.
Yes, I do.
Well, I have a beard. I have never used beard cream, so I'm going to ask, why do I need to use beard cream, or what is the advantage?
Well, when your beard gets as long as mine is, and it's, as the Slash crew who see me in person can attest, I have a very big bushy beard. It requires a lot of maintenance so it doesn't get gross. I use shampoo, I use a softener in the shower, but every few days I also use a beard and scruff softener by Cremo is the brand. And all it does is it sits in your beard for 30 seconds, and it makes it so that it just softens up. It treats the skin beneath the beard so it's less dry. It gives moisture to the beard so that the beard hairs don't die out or don't become gross or don't become bad to touch. My beard, for whatever faults it may have, even though I quite like it, if you touch it, you can run your hand through it without any stress. It doesn't hurt me to touch it. It just makes having a beard a pleasant experience.
I might have to check this out. Okay, let's move on to what we've been watching. This past week, I got to see First Man, which is a film that premiered at Toronto. Is that correct, Chris?
I think it was at Venice first.
Or Venice first. Okay. Yeah. Did you see this film?
Yes, I did. I saw that TIFF and I reviewed it for us.
Yeah. I was very much looking forward to this film because I'm a big fan of the filmmaker, and I am a huge NASA nerd. I love Apollo 13. I was a little bit skeptical of how you could make a movie compelling on the story of, Apollo 11 because, it was kind of just, a successful mission to walk on the moon and, nothing very much went wrong. I do think they did a good job of dramatizing and giving, I think they did a good job with the NASA scenes as a whole. They were so very compelling. I think if the sound designer for that film does not win an Academy Award, I think he is robbed. But and it is. I'm wondering what you guys think. I like Ryan Gosling in about half of the things I see him in, and the other half, to me, he kind of has like this empty look to him, I guess I would describe him, where like it's almost like you're looking at his face and you're looking for emotion or looking for something behind the eyes, and it's almost like he's a robot. Does anybody else here get have that feeling watching Ryan Gosling in some movies? Am I alone?
He tends to play very withdrawn. His last movie, he literally played a robot, and in this movie, that's kind of like the point of the character. Like the whole movie is about how emotionally stunted Neil Armstrong is. So, I see what you're saying, but I also feel like that's just the type of roles he like gravitates towards. I think
I get it. I just feel like I know he's trying to keep his emotions inside, but I would like to feel that a little bit more, and I feel like I just didn't feel it in this movie. But I do think the NASA sequences in this film are worth seeing the movie alone for. Like, they're compelling. The earlier missions before Apollo 11, if you haven't followed and you don't have a encyclopedic knowledge of the U.S. space program, there's some twists and turns there that will have you on the edge of your seat and surprise you. And I did see this in IMAX, like actually at City Walk, so like the real, whatever that aspect ratio is, but not a digital. I guess it was projected digitally, but the real original IMAX aspect ratio, and they shot some scenes for this movie using real IMAX cameras. And those look so good. But that said, Chris, do you think it's a spoiler to discuss this?
What, that he lands on the moon?
No. But like, okay, I don't think it's a spoiler. The only IMAX footage you'll get is at the end of the movie. So, like, yes. You're sitting there in the IMAX theater for the entire movie, like, waiting for the thing to expand in the way that, like, you normally do in, like, a Nolan movie. And it really only opens up, when they land on the moon. And I do think that's a clever and interesting way to do it, but it felt like, I was kind of like, if I was paying that IMAX surcharge and went there to see a movie because I knew that they filmed some scenes in IMAX, I don't know. I think I would feel kind of gypped a little bit, but I do recommend it. I just didn't love it. Chris, since you have seen it, did you like it more than me?
No, I was a little mixed on it. I recommend everyone go read my review at /film.com, but I like Damien Chazelle. I like his previous movies. I even like La La Land, even though I know a lot of people don't like that, but there was like something that just didn't work for me with this. Technically, it's a great movie. Technically, like the way it's shot and the way it's edited, and like you said, the sound design. But there's just something about the way the movie plays out that just really didn't work for me. Except for the entire ending sequence on the moon definitely makes the film just worth seeing because it's so well done. But almost everything before that just didn't really work that well for me.
Yeah, I did like the performance from his co-star Claire. What's her last name?
Claire Foy.
Claire Foy. Yeah, no, she has a great performance. And what else would have been watching? I watched the season finale of America's Got Talent. This is a show that I watched that I probably shouldn't watch. By watch, I mean I probably fast forward through half of each episode. But I do like getting to see, interesting, great variety acts. It does seem like since Simon Cowell has returned as a judge, there is more singing and, musical performers, which is kind of disappointing because I feel like, not that I watch American Idol, but I feel like American Idol gets the good performers and America's Got Talent gets like the second rate performers. So it's like now we're subjected to a lot more second rate, musical performers. And like most reality shows these days, I think America's Got Talent usually tends to, ear on the side of, sob stories and, you finding out a lot about this person and like, the troubles that they grew up with and their adversity through, all these like things. And America, I think I've said this on the podcast in the past, but I feel like America usually gets it wrong when they vote because they usually vote for that, sob story and not, the act itself. We've had seasons of America's Got Talent in the past where like, a ridiculous dog act, and not that I don't like a dog act, but dogs jumping around and stuff won the competition, which by winning the competition you get $1 million and you get an act in Vegas. And I don't think anybody would actually go to Vegas to pay to see dogs jumping around for 10 minutes. And I don't think those dogs could jump around for, as long as, you would need for a Vegas show. But this year, I was happy because the person who won was a magician, not only a magician, second time in 4 years that a magician won, but Shin Lim, who is one of the greatest magicians in the world. If you have not seen Shin Lim, I would go to YouTube, search Shin Lim, and he is just amazing. And I'm just so happy that he won that. And to keep the reality TV coverage going, I did watch the premiere episode of Survivor. This year, it's the theme is David versus Goliath. So there's a team of Davids and there's a team of Goliaths. I think I talked previously on this podcast the last year. I kind of got bitten by the Survivor bug and kind of, binge watched, more than a dozen seasons of Survivor. So I'm all in. I'm playing fantasy leagues. I'm you can pick, who you want. You have you draft members of the team before you even watch the show, and you compete against your friends. This year is interesting for a couple reasons. I think you guys might be interested. One of the contestants this year is Mike White, the screenwriter of School of Rock, and what else has he done? He's written a bunch of stuff, right?
Well, he's also in School of Rock as the real Mr. Schneebly.
Yeah, but so anyways, so there's a screenwriter on there, and there's a WWE wrestler. It isn't full on Celebrity Survivor or anything like that, but it is a little bit more interesting than normal. And every year for Celebrity Survivor, you get to pick one sole survivor. One guy that you think is going to make it to the end, and literally by the end of the premiere episode, my guy got helicoptered out because he broke his back. So I've already lost my fantasy season of Survivor, but I don't know. I'm having fun with it. I can't wait to dive in for the rest of the season. And to get to more narrative, non-reality TV shows, I watched the pilot episode of Maniac. Have any of you guys watched Maniac yet?
I have. I have.
Yeah. Jacob, or you haven't had time, right?
No.
This show is insane. It's insane, crazy. I don't know how it got made. It's I feel like it's like if like who's the guy that made Legion? I don't have
Noah Hawley.
Noah Hawley. I feel like if you took Noah Hawley and you combined it with like Wes Anderson, this would be like the TV show that would come out of those two. I don't know. It's set in this alternate New York City, filled with like this old tech, but huge advancements, and Emma Stone and Jonah Hill, and I don't know. I am compelled by it. It is watching it. It's really going in interesting places, and it's doing something that you've never seen before. And although I'm not quite sure what that is. And after the first episode, I think I looked at my girlfriend Kitra and I was like, do you want to watch another one of these? And I think we both agreed, we're going to give it like a couple of days before we decide if we want to dive in for more, even though I did enjoy it. Chris, since you have seen some of this, what do you think?
Well, I think if you could binge 12 seasons of Survivor or whatever you just said, you can definitely finish this. It's only a few episodes. I do know what you're saying, because my wife had a similar reaction as we were watching it. She was like, I don't know where this is going and if I feel like finishing it. But we did finish it, and I'm glad we did, because the ending is great. I mean, I think the whole thing is great. It's a very unique, strange, surprisingly like touching series. Like, it goes to very emotional places that I wasn't expecting. So I would recommend finishing it.
Okay, I'll keep with it. And the last thing I've been watching is the NBC show Manifest, which is produced by Robert Zemeckis. For those of you who don't know, this is a show that's kind of like, I would describe it as Lost meets This Is Us. And it's about this airplane that took off 5 years ago and disappeared, and lands 5 years later with everybody normal, like nothing has happened, almost like they had gone through a time warp. And the show does some interesting things in that the people that have been returned to Earth, or returned to the world, are changed in interesting ways. I don't want to really spoil anything, but it does kind of get very sci-fi-y. It's a great premise. It's done in a very networky way. The acting is, for the most part, very bad. But the premise has me wanting to continue with it. Have any of you watched Manifest yet?
No, it looks so much like Lost, to the point where I'm reminded of those wave of Lost ripoffs from when Lost was first on and big. Like Flash Forward, for instance.
Yeah.
All these shows that felt like they're trying to grab the zeitgeist in a way that felt desperate. This one, this feels about 10 years too late. So I'm just not interested in that kind of show anymore, I don't think.
This is definitely going for more of a, This Is Us vibe. If you've ever seen that show, it's very much more emotional and character driven than mystery driven, if that makes sense. Although there are some mysteries here, but I'm going to keep with it. I don't know. I don't think it's a good show, but I don't know. I guess during peak TV, I could be watching better stuff, but I'm just compelled by the concept of it all. Chris, what have you been watching?
I watched Skyscraper starring Dwayne Johnson, and it was fine. I don't know what Dwayne Johnson's deal is, because he's so charismatic and so likable, but he picks the most ho-hum scripts, and I kind of feel like it's like a really what's the word I'm looking for? I feel like this is like a thing that's by design. I feel like he has a whole team of people who help him pick the most banal, unoffensive screenplays he possibly can, because he knows they'll play with the majority of audiences. Like, he's not looking
I also don't think it's just that. I think his team and him come on and they make it more of that.
They make it more like watered down. Yeah, you could be right. Yeah, I don't know. And like, this wasn't bad. I mean, I certainly like this more than Rampage, which was the other movie he had this year, which was just awful. And this, this, like, the effects were cool, and it has an okay story. I mean, it's basically just Die Hard in a building, which is Die Hard. So it's literally just Die Hard. So I don't know. Like, I didn't hate it, but
But there's like this danger room on the top of the building. It's all this insanity.
I don't know. I wish he would go back to doing, like, every once in a while he does challenging stuff. Like, he did like Southland Tales, which is a movie I don't think is good, but it's at least interesting. And he did that Pain and Gain, which is another movie I don't really think is that good, but at least he was like stretching himself a bit. I wish he would do more of that with all this other stuff, but I don't know. He probably is just happy to collect his money and do whatever he wants and then go to the gym. So, who am I to tell Dwayne Johnson what to do?
I agree with you. He should be picking interesting filmmakers, but it seems like he keeps on re-signing on to team with the filmmakers that are making the bad movies that no one likes again and again. Do you know what I mean? But you've also been watching a little bit of TV?
Yes, I watched the upcoming season of Channel Zero. It's not out yet, but I had screeners because I'm reviewing it. It's Channel Zero, The Dream Door. And, I'll save my detailed thoughts for my upcoming review, but it's yet again another great season from this show. This, I've said this before multiple times, like, this is like the best horror show that no one is watching. Like, I never hear anyone really talking about this show, and they should, because it's so creepy and it's so well done and it's so self-contained. Like, every season is its own thing, and it only has 6 episodes a season, which is so doable. And this one is one of the best ones yet. I think it's got a lot of stuff that's going to freak people out. Like, if you're one of those people who's actually like scared of clowns, like legitimately scared of them, not in the jokey way, you're going to find this season to be terrifying. So that'll be on Sci-Fi later this month, so be on the lookout for it.
Hey, Chris, I have a question about this season. As someone who thinks seasons 1 and 2 are the best horror TV of all time, but was really let down with season 3, is this more like seasons 1 and 2, or should I be bracing myself?
No, this is definitely better than last season. I was not a big fan of last season either, but this season, the storytelling is much better. It's much tighter. Like, I felt like last season was all over the place, and this one is a lot more focused. So I think you'll like it.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Very cool. When does Channel Zero hit?
October 26th, I want to say, but I could be absolutely wrong there. No, I am right. October 26th. Okay,
cool. Brad, what have you been watching?
I watched Girls Trip for the first time over the weekend. I missed it when it was in theaters, and everyone was ranting and raving about how funny it was and how good it was, and it's been sitting on HBO forever, and I finally just took the time to sit down and watch it. I watched it with my girlfriend long distance. We just watched it at the same time on the old HBO Go, and it's pretty good. It's not quite as good as everyone was ranting and raving about. It's solid, and it's fun to see a group of women like that get to have some like wild, raunchy, debaucherous, fun. But there's some things that kind of just like wear thin on me. Like, honestly, as funny as Tiffany Haddish can be, I'm starting to have the same problem with her that I do with Kevin Hart, where he only works for me in small doses because it seems like they're both just yelling all the time. And it can be funny sometimes. Like, Tiffany Haddish has some great, quick, funny rants and stuff in this movie. And it works sometimes, but then other times it's just like, okay, I'm done with this shtick now. Let's move on. But overall, it was a pretty good movie. I enjoyed it. And it has some good laughs. So liked it, but didn't love it.
What else have you been watching?
I just decided to rewatch Little Giants the other day while I was working. It popped up on my iTunes for some random reason. I saw that it was only like $7 to buy it, and getting it on DVD is actually pretty difficult for some reason. So I actually bought a digital movie and don't have the physical copy. And I watched it, and it's one of those movies that I watched over and over again when I was a kid. And I always just enjoy it, no matter how goofy and silly it is. And plus, like, I love Rick Moranis, and it makes me wish that he would come back and do some more acting again, find some good roles to make some kind of comeback. It's just one of those kind of like classic Disney sports comedies for kids that they honestly don't really make anymore, and I kind of wish that they did, because I feel like a lot of kids are kind of missing out on those kinds of movies nowadays. There's no real like successor to things like Mighty Ducks and Little Giants and The Big Green and The Sandlot and all that stuff. So, that's pretty much it.
I remember really enjoying this when I was younger, and I have not revisited it in years. So I'm glad to hear it's still good.
I mean, I don't know if I would say that it's good. Like, it's certainly not bad, but it's definitely like a family-friendly sports comedy. That's just, it's kind of goofy, but it's got a special place in my heart just because I grew up with it.
For sure. Okay, let's move on to Jacob. What have you been watching outside of all the Fantastic Fest goodness?
Well, I saw 28 movies at Fantastic Fest, and you'll be hearing about those on a future podcast. But I did pause for one evening, right? I took the midnight slot off. I went home to see my wife and pet my dogs, and I decided to watch a movie that I've been looking forward to for a few months now, which is Hell House LLC 2. And the first Hell House LLC is actually one of my favorite found footage horror movies. It is set in an old hotel where a group of young people have rented the space and are creating a haunted house, a Halloween haunt, out of this supposed to be haunted actual hotel. And things go wrong and awry, and people die. And it has all the usual trademarks of found footage horror, but it's done very effectively, and it's very evocative of the Halloween season. And I found it very spooky, and it's one of my go-to recommendations for people wanting to see a good found footage horror movie. And the sequel comes from much the same people, same director and writer, Stephen Cognetti, but it's not nearly as good. Maybe it's about half as good as the first one. It's still fun, but it has an issue I have with certain movies like this where it feels incredibly inauthentic. Like, it'll cut to news programs or a news talk show discussing certain events, and it will feel really cheap and really, really poorly put together. It never feels like a real talk show, for instance. When it gets to the found footage scares in the back half of the movie, when people are actually back in the haunted house, it's perfectly spooky, perfectly entertaining, maybe a little too long. It takes a little too while to wrap up. But it doesn't know what to do with itself. It has a really good premise, which is that the first movie came out and people reacted to it, and people who saw this quote-unquote documentary that the first movie are all seeking out the house and trying to sneak in, and bad stuff's happening to people who are making this choice. And it's smart in the way it reacts to the first film, but it doesn't reach the scares, or it never reaches the same level of tense horror and fun. It just ultimately devolves into people running around dark house screaming a lot. And I had a good time with it, but it's just another found footage horror movie as opposed to being like maybe the cream of the crop of the genre.
Yeah, watching people run around dark houses screaming a lot is something I've been doing a lot lately. Watching, people in, all these haunted theme park events nationwide. I watch a lot of video bloggers, and, in a non-narrative sense, it's kind of frustrating. But, let's move on to what we've been eating. I have been in full diet mode. I have lost 13 pounds so far and counting, which I do realize is a lot of water weight, but it's going. And I did have I ate out on Friday night. A couple friends, their family was in town, and I'm good friends with the family, so they invited me to Maggiano's Italian restaurant, which is this chain. And guys, the struggle is real. Because if you go to an Italian restaurant looking for healthy food, it's hard. You only have a few options, and you got to do modifications and stuff. but I was able to do it. It was fine. Full steam ahead. Brad, what have you been eating?
So while I was out doing my ornament hunting at FYE, I happened to stumble upon this small container of unique chocolates that are Breaking Bad branded. They're the Los Pollos Hermanos chocolates. And it's a small set of 4 chocolate bars that are probably about maybe a third of the size of a normal Hershey bar, I guess you would say. And they have very odd flavors to replicate the fast food experience that is Los Pollos Hermanos. And they include caramel fried chicken.
That sounds awesome.
Curly fries and ketchup.
Maybe not.
Crunchy taco.
No.
And thirst quenching cola.
No.
And so I took a little nibble out of all 4 of them just to try them, and the caramel fried chicken one is the best one just because it's this interesting combination of savory and sweet, and it tastes a little bit like the fried chicken batter, and you really kind of has that that real genuine fried chicken flavor to it along with the chocolate. The curly fries and ketchup one was odd because at first it's a little bit pleasing because it has that salty sweet taste, that almost like a sea salt chocolate kind of thing. But then the ketchup taste comes in and it's very weird and off-putting. The crunchy taco one almost tasted like if you mixed the flavor of tortilla chips in chocolate instead of almost like a crunch bar that has tortilla chips instead of crispy rice in it. But then it also had this spicy aftertaste that they added a little bit of chili pepper or something in it to give it a little bit of a kick as if you were eating a taco. So I don't necessarily think that it tasted much like a taco as much as it did just a kind of a spicy chocolate, I guess. And then the last one, the cola one, was pretty interesting actually because it tastes exactly like the cola syrup does when you get a Coke flavored icy, just mixed with a little bit of chocolate, and it's almost to the point where you can kind of taste the bubbles in a way, even though there's not any pop rocks or anything like that. But it wasn't bad. But it's like I said, the caramel fried chicken one was easily the best one, and then the cola one, and then I can take or leave the fries and ketchup and crunchy taco ones. But if you want to try them yourself, apparently they're an FYE exclusive. You can only get them at the store, and I don't know if they're available online or not, but this is the first time I had seen them. So yeah, you can get them there. They might make a good stocking stuffer for somebody who's a big Breaking Bad fan and likes weird chocolate.
Lame. I don't think I have an FYE near me. Not that I can eat chocolate anyways. Jacob, what have you been eating?
I've been eating way too much food at the Alamo Draft House. One of the benefits of the Draft House as a theater chain is they have the menus and the tables. You can order food before and during the movie. But one of the downsides of the Draft House is that as it expanded nationwide, they've trimmed down their menu considerably to the point where I don't think there's enough variety there to always justify having a full meal. I always try to, get some kind of snack when I go out to them because I know that's where movie theaters make their real money. I want to support, the companies that that I attend regularly. But this is my advice to you if you are a Fantastic Fest goer in the future. Do not rely on the Draft House to keep you fed for the entire week of Fantastic Fest. You will feel sick. You will feel awful because it's all fast food as it is, and the variety will run out real fast. Look into food in the area, pack some lunches, and don't be me.
Yeah, I remember when I used to go to Fantastic Fest, and I guess they probably had a wider variety of food back then. But I remember during movies, because you'd see 4 or 5 movies in the theater that day. And even during movies where, you had just eaten the movie before, I was like, oh, I'll get some mozzarella sticks, or I'll get some... I think I gained, probably 15 pounds from Fantastic Fest when I went, which is pretty insane. That brings us to the end of today's Slash Film Daily. You can find more of all of our work on slashfilm.com. You can find this podcast, Slash Film Daily, on iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps. Please feel free to send us your feedback, questions, comments, concerns to peter@slashfilm.com. Leave your name and general geographic location in case we mention the email on the air. And please also go give us a positive review on our iTunes page. Tell your friends, spread the word, and we'll see you tomorrow.